Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart, and since the World Championships preview, we know that Empire are on the way relatively soon, we hope, and we know that the two Armies of Infamy are going to be the City of Nuln and the Knightly Orders of the Empire. So I thought it would be fun to delve back into some old publications, looking at old army books and White Dwarfs as well, maybe more White Dwarfs, and seeing if I can find any clues as to what we might find in those army lists, or just some really fun inspiration from those old articles.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet.
You'd think that the 4 army books that were released during the lifespan of old Warhammer fantasy would be the first place to look for hints and tips of where we might expect the rules to go in the future, but maybe not so much for those Armies of Infamy. Maybe we need to look a little bit wider and deeper. So we're going to start with old White Dwarfs. Now, this definitely isn't old enough. In fact, this is the latest edition at time of recording, but I thought it was worth noting. There's a Tale of 4 Gamers starting for Warhammer the Old World in there, which is something that not many people who like Warhammer the Old World realise, because they don't tend to pick up White Dwarf very often. And oh look, one of the guys who playtested the new Middle-earth. Luckily, I have a pretty good collection of old White Dwarfs, dating from around issue 80, I think, all the way up to the point when they got to weekly. It's a bit more sporadic after that. So I started to leaf through some old copies, which is always fun, and I found I needed to go further and further back in time, and yes, further again, back to when I had hair and when I didn't have a middle-age spread as well. I started with a little bit of a search online, trying to correlate some issue numbers with army book releases, things like that, and I came up with a small pile to start working my way through, but I returned to my shelves many times over. This isn't work at all though. I love going through old issues of White Dwarf. I went down many little rabbit holes and had to draw myself back and focus again on the issue in hand of what I was trying to look at, but it's always great fun. Now this is right back to pure nostalgia for me. My origins, my first issue was 138, and these are back sort of 12, 18 months after that. So right in that middle of that initial journey for me, and that transition period from the 3rd edition style of Warhammer Fantasy Battle to the 4th edition box set. You see the emergence here of the Empire army moving towards that first army book. You see the colours of the paintings start to get a little bit brighter as we edge into that red era, and these articles are great. This is essentially an army book in White Dwarf in a series of articles over a period of months, which is just brilliant. You can see the ideas coming together in the studio at that time, and I loved looking back, even though it's probably not giving me an awful lot of information about what might be in that Army of Infamy, or either of the Armies of Infamy really. But it's really nice looking back, reminding myself of the foundations of the Empire Army, and an army, funnily enough, at the time that didn't actually interest me at all. I was all about the dwarves, all about the elves, and the Empire. I just thought they were a little bit boring at the time. My love for them grew a little bit later on. As no doubt we'll see when we get to the 4th edition army book, the list is expanded in the way that we didn't see in 8th edition. There was a Talian regiment there. Later on we'll see there's halflings. I've already mentioned the hot pot in a recent video, Imperial dwarves. I'm hopeful some of these things might return, even if it's using that new mercenary system that we seem to see in Warhammer the Old World, which is really quite cool. We also see the emergence of the different knightly orders there, spread amongst things like Kislev as well, but they're all recognisable names, and hopefully we'll see more and more of these in the future. The Empire War Wagon makes its first appearance in White Dwarf 149, at least I believe it's his first appearance. The rules are in there, and that's really cool as well. So we can have a little look at those rules and see if it gives us any clue as to the way it may work in Warhammer the Old World. The war wagon is an armoured battle tower capable of crushing enemies beneath its iron-shod wheels. The tower itself is built high off the ground so that it is very difficult to attack the crew inside. Protected by the tower's high sides are 6 engineers armed with a variety of different experimental weapons. So we have the Hochland long rifle, we have a repeater musket, a blunderbuss, a ball and chain, and a man catcher, and also an engineer with a hook halberd, whatever that is. Back in the day, it was a movement of 6 inches and could charge 12. The Hochland long rifle back then was range 40, strength 4, -1 saving throw. The repeater musket, range 20, strength 4. If you hit, roll again up to 6 shots. The man catcher, if you hit, roll a d6. If the score exceeds the toughness, it is slain without a saving throw. Blunderbuss, range 8, strength 3. All targets under the template are hit, so a template back then. Hook halberd, +1 initiative, +1 strength, and ball and chain, +1 strength, and ignore armor saves. So some interesting things that maybe we can look forward to. The blunderbuss had this awesome massive template, so we talked about a template that is huge. It will be interesting to see if something like that returns as well. And there it is in all its glory in those original heavy metal pages. But that's really it for all those early issues. A nice advert for the war wagon there, and then rules for the halfling hot pot, which I recently completed a painting tutorial of, and I'm going to be using mine as a mortar if it doesn't get rules in the old world. A few articles around knights, blazing sun appearing there, paint schemes for heavy metal for outriders, and rules for outriders as well. So all cool stuff, but not really giving us anything that aren't already in the army list, or that there's maybe not so much chance of them coming back. 157 here, it's got rules for the war altar and that original metal miniature which I had in my 8th edition army, and also has this huge article for Battle of Ulsterwald with Robin Dews and Jervis Johnson battling it out. Of course Jervis loses. For people that love to look back at old battle reports, I can definitely recommend it. It's a really cool one. It's a really old school feel to it. So well worth searching out this magazine on eBay if you don't have it, or even a PDF version. And a little bit later, 209, it's got this little cool double spread, but we're definitely getting cold now with clues for what we might find. And that really closes out the Empire Army for 4th and 5th edition. What we saw in those White Dwarfs is pretty much what we saw in the 4th edition army book, just reproduced in a little bit more refinement. But as far as I know, the rules were the same, or very, very close to. Most of the colour work inside that book is the same colour work that you saw in the issues of White Dwarf. Those heavy metal pages were the way those painted miniatures were displayed back in the day. And in terms of hints and clues for what we might find in our Army of Infamy, there's not really adding anything. Yes, we know that there were different stats for some of the knights, and we know we've got a Knights Army of Infamy, so maybe we can take a guess that there's going to be some different rules maybe, or something or other for picking different knights, but that will be really exciting to see. But I've not really seen anything other than that really obvious thing there that we can lift and say that will definitely carry over. Of course, we've got the rules for the war wagon, and maybe some of those will be the same or similar. If the miniature's the same, they may well have the same names for the weapons and so on. So we can have a look at it, we can get a bit of an idea, but in terms of real clues, probably not, but it's been good fun. We're now jumping forward to 6th edition, or the beginnings of 6th edition, with White Dwarfs 250, 251, 252. And Warhammer now has a very different feel. We have the emergence of that more grimdark feel. The black and white 6th edition rulebook certainly have a different feel about it. We had Empire in the starter set with new plastics at that point, not the current ones, but the ones that are very, very popular with the flannel shirts and all of that Langsneck kind of look. And this magazine is full of it, and so are the later issues. It's big launch time, new Empire Army book for 6th edition launch time. We got all these new miniatures on show, many of them still around now as well. The knights, the weapons crews, the cannons and things are pretty much the same. Obviously the state troops have changed, as I've just mentioned. The militia troops that are now returning to the game as part of Warhammer the Old World as well, which are so loved by the Mordheim players, and this magazine is just absolutely full of it. Big battle report as well, and if you're looking back at old White Dwarfs and want good issues to go back and get a real favour for your favourite armies, this is one of them. So 250, check it out on eBay and have a really good look. There's so much in it, it's just packed full. 251 and 252 are very much second and third wave style magazines, and we see that with releases now, just more on the internet. Another big battle report as well, and you even get a 6th edition play sheet in the issue as well, which is quite cool. Rules for Luther Huss, which we don't need in the old world. Completely the wrong timeline, but some really nice colour plates and pictures if you're looking for references for painting and just inspiration. And there's plenty of inspiration to be had in this era, plenty of cool articles, battle reports, sieges and things like that. These awesome armies like this that look very Nuln-like to me. In White Dwarf 262, 263, 264, there's clearly a big Tau release going on at that period, but also they go a little bit steampunk crazy, which is great. You see all the different versions in this heavy metal showcase here. Loads of cool lore and some of that really cool 6th edition style artwork, which is a little bit more grim. I love both eras. I get really torn between which is my favourite, and I think I try to paint my miniatures as a bit of a cross between the two, so plenty of grime and dirt, but I do like to have some bright colours in there as well. But in each of these magazines there's an in-depth article talking a bit more about the history of the different steampunk variants and their builds and things, even some modelling articles as well. So again, as a bit of a tip, go and pick up these White Dwarfs because they're really, really cool to read. Now that the Armies of Infamy have been announced, this probably isn't as relevant, but this is an Army of Ulrich in a White Dwarf, which is so cool and well worth a look at. And I still hold a little bit of hope we might have a special character that unlocks the Ulrich side of the priests and all that theme, the same way as Ungrim has for the dwarves. So we never know, but again, a really, really cool article here in White Dwarf, and also a Midland army as well. It just shows there is room in the future to add flavour. Maybe all of their armies will have a second arcane journal with new special characters and new theme. There's all this talk of campaign books and things. Absolutely, that could come, but another way of adding campaigns and more characters is just to do a whole second run of arcane journals, and wouldn't that be cool? So leaving White Dwarf issue 289, we jump to White Dwarf issue 310. That's a Paul Sawyer jump to a Guy Haley as editor of White Dwarf, still very much in the early era of Lord of the Rings strategy battle game as it was at that point, so the covers very much reflect that. But I found this really cool article called Knightly Orders of the Empire by Matt Ward, which explores the idea of different legendary knightly orders and gives lots of special rules for them as well. Loads of fun things like blessed, unquenchable zeal, exemplars of Sigmar, wealthy, and then they have disadvantages as well, like pride, humility, disorderly. Really, really cool, fun things, and I wonder if any of those will be drawn upon for the rules in the Army of Infamy. There's also a nice exploration into some of the most famous knightly orders, their paint schemes, as well as their lore and some rules for them as well. This is just a really cool article. There's lots of really cool knightly orders mentioned in this article, including some without paint schemes or colour plates, but it'd be really interesting to see how many of these knightly orders were around in the old world time period. And also from the 6th edition era, we have the Citadel Journal, issue 43, I believe at that time edited by Warwick Kinraid, who now runs his own games company, Arteris Games. Many awesome titles, including Soldiers of Napoleon, which is a brilliant set of Napoleonic rules. Massive side addendum there, but go and check them out if those kind of things interest you. But anyway, a whole article on Empire Crusader armies. Again, we've got fairly knightly themed heavy army list here with infantry as well, and maybe this is another inspiration that the rules writers could have taken when looking at how to do an Army of Infamy for knightly orders, and it fits quite nicely in with the whole Border Princes vibe that we saw with the Bretonnians early in the release. So maybe that's a nod that it could go that way. It could also be seen as maybe too similar to that, and they'll be looking to do something a little bit more different. But again, something else cool to delve into and look at if you're interested. So that rounds out another edition era, so to speak, as we move into that more grim, dark feeling. And for many people, their favourite edition of Warhammer Fantasy. Pop your own in the comments below, keep it kind and friendly. I am a fan of 6th and 7th edition, really. I did like the feeling that you got playing games of Warhammer back then. And looking at those White Dwarves and some of the content around them, we've got some ideas of how Games Workshop might be approaching the Army of Infamy for the Knights. There's some ideas for theme, whether it be Crusader or different rules for different knightly orders. Right at the end of the 6th edition Empire Army book, we have our next clue. We have the Artillery Train of Nuln. The 6th edition Army books had some really cool, flavourful army lists at the back of the book, which changed your restrictions and things. And this one allowed you to have cannons and mortars and things in core, which would be very, very cool. I wonder if that's a route they will go down. Well worth having a look at. Not an awful lot of rules there to dig into, but these nice colour pictures at the back of what an artillery army might look like. As we reach 7th edition, I think the tips and things start to dry up a little bit. But on the other hand, we get some of the best colour plates and pictures and inspirations for painting that you're likely to see across any of the editions of White Dwarf and across the army books. All of this around the launch of the new Empire troops and the 7th edition army book is really, really fantastic stuff. And there's just pages after pages of the kits that are coming back now, the kits that we're going to be building our Warhammer the Old World armies, if you're buying new kits that is and don't already have them. So they're well worth a look at if you do have access to them. There's loads of really cool battle reports, loads of stuff, just so much happened during that era, and it was really good fun sort of jogging my memory. This was around the time that I got back into gaming after a little bit of a break, and I really, really enjoyed playing Warhammer Fantasy in 7th edition. I wish I still had my Colours of War book as well, and foolishly sold a few books around the end of 8th edition when I was playing other games, and definitely regret them now looking at some of the prices that you see online. It's got a range of articles in this period, loads of really cool battle reports here you see between Adam Troke and Andy Horn. Again, it's just so much fun going back and rereading some of these. And then there's fun articles like this around events and competitive play, and you can see the kind of army lists that were around back then. There's a lot of small units of knights there, still infantry, but it definitely shows that competitive Warhammer has always produced slightly different looking armies than those you see in the army books. So maybe when we criticise, and include myself in that, it's competitive play that drives a lot of those things. Hopefully though, infantry does get a little bit of a boost soon. But look at these crazy articles with massive sieges and things. So well worth delving back into your old collections for 7th edition if you still have them. 7th edition Warhammer Fantasy was very much a subtle evolution of 6th edition in many ways, and lots of people regard it as a superior rule set. There'll always be debates on those things, but I really enjoyed it. The army books, on the other hand, there was probably a wider gap between the power levels at the top and the bottom than we saw in 6th edition. We started to see some real power creep. I can remember demons and dark elves and lizards being extremely powerful during that era, and it was fun, but a lot of people started to see that as the downturn in the balance and the quality of Warhammer overall. I wonder sometimes that we look at things in the wrong way, but there were definitely some powerful armies during that period. But in terms of this Empire set of rules, really, I don't think there's any clues other than the steady evolution we've already seen. I think the 6th edition articles and the Nuln train and all the stuff around the knightly orders was probably a bigger clue in terms of what we might see for flavour in Warhammer the Old World. But this edition is brilliant for artwork and for lore and for colour schemes and a sort of a hobby kind of inspiration for sure, and well worth a look. In regards to the theme of this video, 8th edition was very much the same. I'm sad to report, again, beautiful colours. We've got lots of new miniatures. We've obviously got demigryphs for the first time, but we've also got other things like the Luminarch, which aren't in the old world and won't be making a reappearance unless it's a completely shock move. But there were some cool new kits, and again, if you're looking for reference for paint jobs and things like that, then there are plenty of pages in these White Dwarfs and in the 8th edition army book that's well worth a look at. The wonderful plastic war altar, some really nice miniatures during this era, and some good painting articles as well. I think there's one by Chris Peach which talks about painting lots of different provinces and things like that. So really good things, lots and lots to look at. But in terms of giving us an idea of the direction they may go with a Army of Infamy for Nuln and an Army of Infamy for Knights, I just don't think there's anything there for you. So dig out your White Dwarfs, look at all the beautiful colour pictures, which you may have been doing anyway. Get loads of painting inspiration. Now there is this article on Civil War, which is quite cool. It does take it back to the Age of the Three Emperors, but again, it's not really going to help us from here trying to find clues for what might come. And to finish off, a little bit of inspiration, personal inspiration for me, for my Nuln army, an Armies on Parade article from the famous Dave Taylor and his wonderful Armies of Nuln project that he put together, and it's all available to see on his blog as well, so it's well worth checking it out. Loads and loads of blog entries with detail about how he went around it, and I'm definitely going to be delving into this in great detail, trying to get some ideas for the army I'm building right now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. It was fun for me, and I thought it was something I would share with you. I'm so excited about Empire, and I love to dive into my pretty large White Dwarf collection that goes back over a number of years and look at my old army books and things whenever I get an idea in my mind about a project or an army or something like that. And I'm sure as wargamers watching this, many of you are exactly the same. Something comes along and you're like, brilliant, I want to go and research it. And I know that that's what this video was a little bit of, me digging into those things. Really excited to look myself. So I thought it will be fun to make a short video about it. So I hope that was okay. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm sure for those of you that didn't like that, if you're probably not still watching at this point anyway, lots more old world stuff to come. I've got a lot of videos planned in, and I'm really looking forward to bringing those to you. Lots more Empire things as well, and beyond, as the different factions come out as well. Each faction will get its little time in the sun on the channel, so if you're a fan of Warhammer the Old World, do stick around, do subscribe so you don't miss any future chats like this and painting tutorials and all the hobby stuff that I do as well. I'll try to do a really broad range of content that covers most aspects of the hobby. Maybe not too much of the really high-end meta-y competition stuff, because I'm just not that good at the game, but it does interest me, and maybe I'll get some guests on that can talk a little bit more about that as well and really round out the kind of the style of content that I put on the channel for Warhammer the Old World. It's going to be a huge 2025 for Warhammer the Old World, I'm sure, and I'm definitely going to be keeping up with that on the channel. So if you have enjoyed the video, do give it a like, drop a comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts. Maybe there's some White Dwarfs and articles and things that I've missed that you can point me to that I can go and do some more reading and feed my own excitement. If you'd like to support the channel further, loads of links in that video description. So affiliate links to a few of the supplies that I've reviewed before, and it's a way of you getting a little bit of money off as well. And if you'd like to support me more directly, I have a Patreon as well. There's a link there and you can look at all the different tiers that are available to do that. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.